Hello and welcome to afternoon tea from Bookends. More tea, Gerald?
Yes, please. We're on episode. Here we go. We're on episode 4 already,
Wow.
and what we're doing today is we're talking about character. We talked about character last week with a character from one of your books, Ruby Sixpence, which I thought was really interesting.
So today I'm going to ask you
Me?
about a character from one of your books. Where do they come from? How do you get the idea, and how do you create a new character?
Okay. The character I've chosen first makes her appearance in this here book by Jack Warwick, who is also my pseudonym. And the character's name is Detective Chief Inspector Danny Monroe, who is a British police person. And I wanted to write an interesting, quirky character,
Yeah.
who has a solid base in doing the right thing.
I think it's interesting. Also, it's quite difficult, I would have thought, to write a detective who's not kind of a cliche, who's not already been done.
Yeah.
By many of the very famous detective writers' stories on film and television.
Yeah.
So, and you were very clear that you wanted it to be a woman, a female D.C.I.
This used to be. It started off as being male, and an Essex sort of cheeky Cockney sort of guy who's always ready with the jokes and the quips. And then I looked at it and I thought, it just doesn't work. It's really a cliche, and it's quite I found him quite obnoxious, having written many thousands of words.
Right.
So I took the inspiration for this character, for Danny Monroe, from a program called The Wire that you haven't seen.
No, I haven't.
There's a female police officer there who's they don't give her any special treatment because she's female. She just happens to be a woman, but she's just one of the guys. And I liked that she was strong, she was tough, and she was a really interesting character.
Does the fact that Danny Monroe's gay have any impact on the story?
Yes, because this is one of the things from her backstory which will come out in future. She used to work in the London Met Police Force, but because she was gay, she received quite a lot of jokey abuse. They call it bants.
Right.
And she's not that sort of person. She doesn't wear the fact that she's gay on her sleeve. She just happens to be gay. So I think she didn't want to make a big thing of it, but people kept reminding her, and people kept making jokes about her. So this is part of what sort of toughened her up, and a reason why she no longer works in the Met Police Force. She got a transfer out.
Okay. So where is she based now?
She's based in an Essex seaside town, or near an Essex seaside town.
Okay. As is. And a few others of your stories are based in the same place. Yeah,
I'm currently writing a series of books called "The Body on the Body in the Body Under the." There's a theme here, and the main protagonist there is a journalist called Jerry Sanders, who makes his appearance in this book. But he's a good. I like him. He's a good character, so I've used him in this series. But Danny Monroe comes into the books as the sort of police foil for him, because you've always got this relationship between the sort of sleuth, the private amateur detectives, and the full-time official police force. And in books like Poirot and Sherlock Holmes, there's this sort of cosy relationship that the police call the experts in, and I think that was all right for those times, but for modern times, I don't think you would. You might bring in experts on a particular aspect of police work.
Yeah, but they just see it as meddling.
They just see it as meddling.
And what really interests me, because we're talking about the characters here, we're talking about Danny Monroe, D.C.I. Danny Monroe, and Jerry Sanders, the journalist.
Yeah.
and how they both appeared in this book, Corruption, but have now cross-pollinated into the crime fiction, because that's an apocalyptic thriller.
Yes.
But into the crime fiction as more permanent characters.
Yes.
And that idea of characters leaking out from one book into another. And I think that's a really nice way of weaving your stories together in a way.
It is quite interesting, and I quite like the fact that I'm going to have Danny Monroe across 3 types of books: a political thriller, the sort of amateur sleuth crime books, and the police procedural crime books, which will come next year sometime. So I love her as a character. She's quite, because I think you imbue your lead characters with some of your own character traits, or
Absolutely.
the character traits you would wish yourself to have. And for me, Danny Monroe has the snappy retorts. She's a little bit sarcastic. She's she treats people well, but she doesn't mess about with them. The people who work for her, Detective Sergeant Mooney, in the books I'm currently writing, she supports him, she respects him, but she stands no nonsense from him, and he always knows where he stands with his boss, which I quite like. I quite like that sort of respect for each other, and she's quite difficult to reach as well. She's a bit sort of standoffish. She doesn't join in with the rest of the...
So that's interesting from the point of view of a reader. If you're writing a character who is not immediately likeable, how do you get the reader to actually care about them and engage with them? I think that's a challenge.
And I think I mean, it's okay in the current body under the books, because she's a secondary character. When she comes to the fore in her own series, I think it will be important to show as soon as possible that she's a good person.
Okay.
So it's a bit like the Save the Cat thing, where you have a protagonist who may not be likeable or may have to do unlikable things. You have them save a cat early on in the film or the story. You show their sort of nicer side to get the audience, to get the readers on side and to like them. So it'll be the same with Danny Monroe. She'll have something to deal with. She'll deal with it well, and we'll see the sort of the other side of her. And then we can proceed with the rest of the story.
I think another interesting thing about how we write characters differently is that, and I don't know if this is a male-female thing in terms of authors or readers, but I tend to come at them from the emotional landscape of the character. And I don't know if you do that, and where the emotional landscape of your character sits within the book, because your books are more driven by a story and needing to service that story.
Yes.
To a large extent. Whereas, as I said last week in Ruby Sixpence, my characters are the drivers.
Yes.
Rather than the story. They create the stories around themselves.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think for me, the story comes first. I have an idea for a character. I then write the story around that character, and the emotion and the psychology of the character is sort of it sort of ekes out. It leaks out in the writing. I hope anyway that we do get an idea of the character's backstory, of what they are like, what drives them, what interests them, what angers them, and all that sort of stuff. So it's important that your main characters are richly drawn and have many aspects to their characters. But for me, it's the characters which drive the story. The story is the principal thing, very plot driven.
Absolutely plot driven. What I was going to say is that as human beings, we're all at the centre of our own dramas. We are all our own heroes. And when you were saying earlier about there's a bit of us in
Yes.
all of those characters, that's inevitable when you
Yes.
think about it.
Yeah.
And it's not just what we've done, our experiences, where we've been, who we know. It's about the thing I was going to say is it's showing a character in action is how you show what they're really like.
Yes.
And it's about how they react to situations.
Yes.
So that's why even if it's story driven, you've got the story and the plot. It's plot driven.
Yeah.
It's how your character reacts to the things that are the barriers that you put in front of them is how you show their character.
Yes.
And I think that's the key thing. And two different characters might react to the same obstacle in different ways, as do we.
As do we.
Yeah.
Indeed, we do. So I think that's probably about enough about my characters. So if you like this sort of stuff, please give the podcast a thumbs up, like that, and subscribe below, and tick the notification bell, which means that YouTube will email you when another one of these has been put out. But we will attempt to do it every Sunday afternoon around 4 o'clock.
So that's it for today. Thanks for being with us. See you soon.
Bye! I do. Well done.
You don't need to say that.
Don't I? And the character's name is Danny McGregor, who's a detective. No,
Danny Monroe.
Danny Monroe. What do I know? What do I know?
You just invented it.
Just if I got a new character. Hilarious. Right. Oh, flipping heck. The character I've chosen. Come on, Gerald. The character. Sort of. I'm really not doing very well today.
And one of something I was going to say to add to that is I've forgotten.
Okay. It happens.
What I was going to say is that
Don't look at my camera. Look at your camera.
oh, mine's over there.